Jimmy Carter had by far the longest post-presidency in U.S. history. It lasted 11 times as long as his single term in the White House. In that time, Carter became a model for what a former U.S. president could be and accomplish. Joining us now is Robert Costa, our chief election and campaign correspondent. Carter, as you know, Robert, was from the rural South. He grew up under segregationist laws. It was a way of life, yet he spoke up in defense of civil rights that really helped to change the course of the South. What was it about Jimmy Carter? Why do you think he did that?
Jerika, good to be with you. To step into Plains, Georgia, is to step into who Jimmy Carter was, someone who rose from a rural boyhood in the Deep South to become someone who ran for governor in Georgia and said that the time for racial discrimination is over, that when he made the inaugural address he had in January 1971, he cast the South in a new light, said he was going to break through the past, and that set the tone for what happened in 1976 when he ran for the White House as an outsider.
And let's talk about his ascent to the Oval Office. You know, how was he able to do it? I was reading up and looking at even how he was one of the first, the only Democrat to take Texas, but how he had that plain spokenness that people wanted to give him a chance, even though he only served one term. But tell us just more about his time at the White House.
Jerika, he was a total outsider who was not taken seriously by the Washington establishment. And when he announced, people said, Jimmy who? Who is this governor from Georgia who thinks he actually has a shot at the nomination? But he beat the establishment. He offered not only an outsider persona, but a new start for the Democratic Party and the nation after the plague of Watergate and the scandals of President Richard Nixon. And in 1976, he beat Gerald Ford, the incumbent president. That led to tensions in his presidency. He was someone who came to the Capitol without the relationships in Congress, but he was always his own man, and he kept that outsider presence throughout his 4 years in Washington.
And while he had a complicated presidency, as we just heard in Norah's package, he'll likely be revered and really remembered for how he lived his life after leaving the White House.
His time after winning the presidency in 1976 was dominated by foreign policy and domestic policy. But you see in President Carter someone who, after he lost in 1980 to Ronald Reagan, was determined to not just retreat to Plains, Georgia, but to set the pace for what a post-presidency could be. He's someone who could really set a tone for peace in this country and be able to try to make sure that when it comes to peacemaking and working abroad on human rights and on health issues, he could be at the forefront of that global conversation.
And I think, Bob, really quickly, just commenting, too, on what he represented. When you look at him as a family man, married 77 years, dedicated to his wife and his children, even President-elect Donald Trump commenting that he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans.
And Rosalind Carter should not be someone who's discounted in this conversation in any way. He saw her as a partner when it came to governing, someone who was trying to work alongside the president at every turn, a confidant for President Jimmy Carter and for Jimmy Carter, the man, someone who was trying to help him at every turn to make sure that they could make decisions as a couple, to have the family be a major part of that White House experience. This was a crucial part of his career from day one, always at his side until the end, until her death as well just a few years ago.
Yeah, and now they are together again. Bob Costa, thank you so much for your reporting. We really appreciate it.